I'm quoting a little bit from Galatians. God calls us to freedom. You were called to freedom. Don't use your freedom as a pretext for evil. Well, called to freedom means, that implies step 0. All right? Our love and joy and kindness mean we even absorb persecution and slander and mistreatment, right? And we figure, well, my immediate reaction is, "Argh!" But then there's this whole cross thing that reminds me that wasn't God's reaction to my abuse. And so we endure abuse. Now there's a debate between Calvinists who want to restrict the word prevenient grace to the kind of affirmative grace that comes from Jesus through the church in the Spirit involving the good news. And the Wesleyan approach that wants to widen prevenient grace to include things like natural revelation or common human affection and decency. People are being prepared by their own cultures, by their own loved ones, to hear the good news and receive it. The woman at the well who receives Jesus is prepared for it because she knows good in her life. And so she knows it when she sees it. Wow. I think he's the Messiah. And that's a kind of generalized Wesleyan prevenient grace. But it's also a kind of, it has a more specific application. That favor's point is its fulfillment. Natural, cultural revelation, whatever you want to call it, it's not an end in itself. It's oriented towards salvation. Where do you hear stuff like this? Galatians is where you hear stuff like this, where Paul says, the law is like Israel's tutor. The elements of the universe, the structures and the rules of the universe are like the Gentiles' tutor to prepare us for the inheritance that's coming later. Those elements, even the Torah is in Galatians a kind of step 0, prevenient grace. Yes. And it's not just more of the same that you get in Jesus. You get the inheritance itself. You get something far better than the preparation. This is actually where this gets Calvinists into some trouble because they have to figure out what do you do with decency and goodness that isn't oriented towards salvation because it doesn't seem to produce salvation. You call it common grace. And common grace is the kind of grace that God shows towards people who are never going to be saved. They have to break that relationship between God's revelation in nature and God's revelation through human decency and all the rest, and the big picture of salvation. Catholics have a robust doctrine of natural theology and a conviction that grace perfects nature. That the whole natural world and its structures and its God-given goodness are waiting to be fixed and perfected by saving grace. Which means a kind of optimistic take on even fallen humanity. Grace doesn't violate nature, it perfects nature. Whereas Calvinists, you might call the Catholic position a kind of soft Augustinianism. Augustine on a happy day. The Calvinist side is more Augustine on a gloomy day, when Alaric is sacking Rome, when he's fighting Pelagians. Calvinists sort of put the hard Calvinist line as total depravity. Now Wesleyans believe total depravity as well. Everybody accepts that. But no part of us is untouched by sin. No part of us is unaffected by sin. And so every part of us needs saving, even our will, even our choice. The 5 points of classic Calvinism take the whole big picture of salvation and they root them all in step 0. Prior grace is given only to the elect, unconditionally, and only certain people are the elect. And the people who receive that prior grace get it irresistibly. Wesleyans have a different answer here, and I'm going to root that over in step 1, because Wesleyans and Arminians moved away from stuffing all of it in step 0 and wanted to parcel it out over the steps.